Ethereum is a Rube-Goldberg machine. Welcome to Bitcoin Tech Talk, issue number 250. As always, you can find this on in your inbox if you go to jimmysong.substack.com, and you can subscribe. You get this newsletter every Monday at 9 a.m. and hopefully that's something that you might want to do. So Ethereum is a Rube Goldberg machine. Ethereum Twitter was in an uproar this week because the ETH hashtag appended an Ethiopian flag instead of the Ethereum symbol. This is most likely to allow tagging of Olympic results in a way that's more engaging, but never mind that. To Ethereum enthusiasts, whom I call F-heads, this was a travesty of justice. After all, the Bitcoin and BTC tags both append a Bitcoin symbol, so why are they being discriminated against? What was interesting to me was that they saw this as a huge blow to their brand. They were less important than the country of Ethiopia and felt like Jack Dorsey was personally insulting them. This is all the more interesting because there are lots of other issues going on in Ethereum right now. There's the MEV stuff because of their pending move to proof of stake. There's the large number of scams on DeFi. NFT winter is pretty much here. And of course, Ethereum 2.0 is delayed again. Notice that these issues are all related to the completely centralized nature of Ethereum. Their central committee has been determined to destroy miner revenue through a move to proof of stake. They have been promoting DeFi and NFTs for 2 years and have been planning and mostly failing to execute Ethereum 2.0 for 3 years now. They are, however, narratives around which hype in Ethereum continues. The technical merits are questionable at best, but the speculative frenzy is not. Ethereum has always been and continues to be a Rube Goldberg machine. The complexity of the machine was always meant to dazzle us into missing what that machine actually does. The point wasn't to complete some task, but to get people to buy the token. Which brings us back to the ETH tag controversy. The reason so many F-heads are so upset is because they recognize the harm to their brand. An F tag that showed the Ethereum logo would be a major boost to their marketing efforts. They would be able to claim some level of tacit endorsement by a major tech company. Instead, what they get is a tacit disapproval of their complete nothing burger of a currency. Still, they continue to market the heck out of their features, which, lacking substance, they certainly need. Notice that every contract on Ethereum can more or less be run on Ethereum Classic, Binance Chain, and others without any modification. The only reason people continue to be on Ethereum is because of the heavy marketing they put in to get new suckers. And there's always great opportunity to make money when there's a lot of suckers in one place. In a way, Ethereum has become a test of investment philosophy. How much do you care about what you're buying? And how much do you care about how other people perceive what you're buying? For the sake of civilization, I hope more people start focusing on the fundamentals instead the hype. And this is something that's been kind of sad to watch for me with respect to Ethereum, is that so many people do focus just on whether or not other people are buying. And the justifications are extremely flimsy and very few people actually look into them. But those justifications are good enough to ignite the speculative frenzy that comes every once in a while. And we've seen this happen with DeFi, NFT, ICOs, and IEOs, and many other things that have happened on Ethereum. And this is a perpetual thing that they keep doing, is that they hype something up and make it seem like it's the next big thing. And then when the hype dies down, nobody cares to remember what actually happened. And I think it's actually decivilizing. It makes investment a game of, a Keynesian beauty contest, more or less, instead of making it civilization building. If you invest in things because of their merit, then you're going to create goods and services that people actually want. If you're quote unquote investing as speculation just because other people are going into it, then the capital isn't being allocated properly. It's just going towards whatever happens to be going up. This is one of the evils of fiat money, is that it encourages this sort of behavior, especially when inflation comes. All right, let's talk about Bitcoin a little bit. An amusing post by B10C shows how pay-to-taproot outputs are actually spendable because Taproot hasn't activated yet and nodes are not enforcing those rules. It's great that someone is testing pay-to-taproot addresses and so on, but you should really use Signet or until testnet activation to do so, lest you lose the money locked to those addresses. The post goes into how SegWit works in general, which is useful as an upgrade guide. Taproot is SegWit v1. So apparently people are testing pay-to-taproot, except the additional validation needed isn't being enforced by the nodes yet until mid-November or so. So until then, it's kind of you're basically making it possible for any miner to just take your money, which apparently they have. Chaincode has a seminar program for those that want to learn Bitcoin and Lightning protocol development. This looks like a fantastic program to learn to become a developer, with weekly readings and studies, which include some of the stuff I've written and presented. I suspect companies are chomping at the bit to hire anyone that's gone through this program, as it's intense and thorough. It is very intense, and I think it's like a 12-week program, 6 weeks on Bitcoin Core and 6 weeks on Lightning. Lots of reading, lots of intense study. For the self-starter, I totally recommend this. It isn't easy though, and I suspect you're going to have to read my book first before you get into it, as the topics tend to be fairly heavy. Brink has given more developer grants. Congrats to Larry Ruane and Sebastian Falbessoner. Their PR reviews and co-contributions will surely continue to help Bitcoin and its security. So Brink continues to fund a lot of developers. That's an organization started by John Newberry. I think Mike Schmidt and is involved as well. But yeah, this is, David Harding also is involved. But this is an amazing way to support Bitcoin development. I believe they are a nonprofit, so if you donate to them, it might be tax deductible in certain jurisdictions and so on. They are based out of London. Great stuff. Lightning. Blockstream has announced a Lightning node hosting service called Greenlight. This is a service to make running a Lightning node as easy as possible, yet still not hold user keys. Users will still hold their own keys on their own device and will communicate with the service to sign various transactions. This looks to me like the AWS of the Lightning Network Web 3.0 structure, where apps can now be built and scaled appropriately. Great initiative to help people onboard to Lightning. So something I didn't mention that you can read in the blog post is that they are using it for a couple of services like Sphinx Chat and so on. It really is sort of like the beginning of Web 3.0 that's actually decentralized and not around walled gardens and so on. Aaron Malone shares how to run a Lightning node profitably. The main takeaways from the article are that peers matter more than channel size. Rebalancing is appropriate only when there's flow both ways, and now is a good time to experiment with routing fees. The practical realities of running a Lightning node are still a bit difficult to manage, but Plebnet and articles like this are helping many people get on. And of course, Blockstream's new service, Greenlight, will help too. But yeah, the Lightning Network is growing really, really fast, and you can kind of see it in the channel capacity and so on, which we'll cover in the next story. But yeah, practical articles like this about what you should care about from the people that are actually running Lightning nodes is an important part of getting people to understand what they're getting into. Ryan Gentry writes his always informative Lightning Labs newsletter. As he points out, the increase in network capacity has been exponential recently. Similar increases are happening in the podcast space, with more podcasts enabling Lightning to receive payment. The general trend is that everything on Lightning is starting to ramp up in what he calls the flywheel effect. The last 4 years of work on Lightning seems to be really paying off now. And this is something I saw this morning, that now there's more than 2,000 Bitcoin capacity on the Lightning Network. And technology tends to be like this. It's not like the curve of an altcoin, which spikes very early and then peters off for a long time. It's just for actual technology, it tends to be a pretty slow run up and then sort of exponential growth. We seem to be hitting the sweet part of the curve for Lightning. And there's a lot of companies that would love additional investment, and so on. But this is what they've been working on. It's getting the infrastructure ready for what I think is going to be an amazing Web 3.0 experience. Economics, engineering, etc. Alex Gladstein argues that Bitcoin can bring freedom to Palestine. The article is a great history lesson on how the Gaza Strip came to be, and more importantly, what's caused the unbelievable poverty. Alex points out that most of what's going wrong there is because of the economic policy set out by the international community and the leaders of Palestine. Between incredibly unfair trade policies with their neighbors and corruption of officials, they've essentially become almost entirely dependent on international aid. What's amazing is that Bitcoin is starting to alleviate their pain by allowing some of the many unemployed to earn money doing jobs over the internet. Truly eye-opening article and worth reading in full. So yeah, the more I learn about foreign policy, international politics, and so on, the more I'm convinced a lot of it just comes down to money. And ideologues on all sides tend to need money for one reason or another, and there's a lot of monetary oppression going on country to country, not just country to its citizens, which unfortunately has been prevalent, but not very well politicized or publicized. Alex, I think, is doing a great job of doing that more recently with his pieces. So worth reading in full. Stefan Livera makes the case against fiat money. This is published on Yahoo Finance Australia and is meant for normies that don't know what fiat money even means. He gives a great argument for looking at economics from an Austrian perspective and argues for Bitcoin near the end. Good article to send to your normie friends that don't know where to get started. So Stefan Livera does a great job. He's definitely an Austrian economist and knows what he's talking about in that regard. And this is an article to sort of introduce people to the idea of fiat money and putting Bitcoin in contrast to that. I found that to be a very effective way to introduce people to Bitcoin, because it shows you the problem and then the solution, instead of, hey, here's this new technical thing, what can it do? And then, people don't really understand the problem it's solving. Pete Rizzo writes amusingly about the disappointment that was the B word. I share his opinion that this was an event almost entirely dedicated to shutting up the loose nihilistic cannon that is Elon Musk. As he points out, Elon is at the stage of Bitcoin discovery where he can only think about it as a technology and not a money. He'll come around, I think, but I'm not sure we'll like it when he does. So what I mean by that is that he really does tend to have this sort of like streak where he just wants to amuse himself, and he's not doing anything to really help civilization necessarily. I suspect that a lot of what he's building for himself, which can be good or whatever. But when it comes to his sort of economic beliefs, I think he's going to try to impose his economic beliefs on Bitcoin in typical fashion, as a lot of people do when they learn about it. I just heard about Bitcoin, I'm here to fix it. I think that's what he's going to attempt to do once he really understands that it's money. If you think we've heard the last from Elon Musk, I really don't think that's it. Where he's going to be talking about this a long time, and it will become an obsession for him, I think. Nick Ward makes an interesting comparison between fantasy football and Bitcoin. As he says, there is tremendous upside to Bitcoin, much like drafting late round running backs. Of course, for me, I see Bitcoin as more like the first round wide receiver, in that it's the safest thing in my portfolio. Bitcoin really does defy categories and can play multiple positions on your team. And that's the key, is that for some people it's going to be the risky investment at the very bottom of their portfolio with high upside. For other people like me, this is the safe investment that I keep a lot of my money in, because it's for me like you know much safer than almost anything else. It's not like, if you use the US dollar as a baseline, then of course it's going to seem risky, but for me it's safer, and it's going to have different roles for different people, and I think it changes as you stay in Bitcoin and understand Bitcoin. Doug from Bitstop looks to Bitcoin for hope in Cuba. Doug has relatives back there, and this is a personal article for him. He thinks this is a country ripe for Bitcoin adoption at the street level. They certainly seem thirsty for freedom, and we're finding that technology is helping them to get that. Let's hope that Bitcoin starts changing things geopolitically. And this is certainly seeming to be the case, because a lot of the suffering in a lot of these countries is due to international embargoes or blockades or sanctions, whatever you want to call it. It's a lack of trade or lack of economic activity between countries that causes all sorts of shortages and suffering and things of that nature. Now, this can be imposed from the outside, as in the case of Cuba, Iran, North Korea, or whatever, or it can be imposed from the inside. Like a lot of countries just don't allow imports of certain things, and so on. It is very interesting, because Cuba, I think, does a little bit of both. They don't allow certain trade of certain imports of certain things, because they're more or less a communist country. But they do, but the international community, more or less the dollar hegemony, prevents Cuba from receiving certain things. So we have an interesting situation where Bitcoin is going to start changing things there, and hopefully for the better. Quick hits. Thorchain gets drained for another 8 million. The message, by the way, that the hacker wrote, or the person that drained it wrote, is like, you got to finish your audit. This is like a 9-digit project, and you're like, playing with it. It's, I wrote the Thorchain Eric Voorhees article last week, and then this happens again. They are looking pretty terrible at this point. BSV's pitiful hash rate is about to go lower. This is because Binance is going to shut down their BSV pool. Regulators are noticing that a lot of DeFi projects are scams. So regulation is probably coming to the DeFi space, largely because of all the abundant scams that are coming into that space. I suspect that they'll try. If they were smart, they would probably, go attack their single point of failure, which is the Ethereum development team, and or Infura or something, to make sure that these can be reversed or something. Liquid has an exchange built on it now. So they have it's a federated side chain. So there's now like essentially a federated exchange where you can do quick exchanges one to another, which should be very interesting. Twitter looks to integrate Bitcoin, as is Amazon. So they're both kind of looking at it. Amazon is rumored to maybe integrate Bitcoin in the next year on their website. I'm not sure how I feel about it, but it'll be interesting to see if they hold Bitcoin. I think that will be the bigger indicator of adoption, is whether or not they're actually holding it, or just doing it for the publicity or something. I will be at the Bitcoin Standard Conference on August 12th to 14th in Ensenada, Mexico. BitBlock Boom in Dallas, August 26th to 29th. Token 2049 in London, England on October 8th and 9th. TabConf in Atlanta, Georgia, November 4th and 4th through 6th. So those are the next 4 conferences I'll be at. I'm getting back to the normal schedule post-COVID, hopefully, where I do about one conference a month. The Programming Blockchain Seminar is in Mexico, August 10th and 11th. If you want to learn from me, Bitcoin programming, this is the place to do it. It's a 2-day seminar for programmers to learn about Bitcoin, and you can apply and I do have some scholarships available. I'm also working on having seminars in London during the conference, so maybe October 10th and 11th, and Atlanta right before the conference, so November 2nd and 3rd, something like that. So I am looking for venues. It will probably be on the website fairly soon. On this week's Bitcoin Fixes This, I talked to Carl-Johan Alm about Bitcoin core development, how it's decentralized, and the dynamics around it. I read through. I also read through last week's newsletter, which you can find. Yeah, the conversation with Callie was awesome. He really provided a lot of insights into what Bitcoin development is actually like. So hopefully you can listen to it. Talked about the moral argument for Bitcoin, why you should have lots of kids, and of course, the new book on the Bitcoin Standard podcast. So Safedine and I talked for an hour and a half about all that stuff. Hopefully you can enjoy it as much as I did. My other books are the Little Bitcoin book and Programming Bitcoin, which you can find on Amazon. Unchained Capital is the sponsor of this newsletter. I'm an advisor and proud to be a part of a company that's enhancing security for Bitcoin holders. If you need multi-sig collaborative custody or Bitcoin native financial services, learn more at unchained.com. Fiat Delenda Est, this song is done.